Hello, and it's great to have you with us virtually for this session of GreenWeek, Achieving Zero Pollution Cities Through the Green City Accord. Wherever you are, we do hope you're going to enjoy this session and discover how different cities around Europe are heading towards zero pollution. I'm Renee Wyndham, a former BBC journalist, and I'm your moderator for this hour, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I think we're going to enjoy it. First, some practical tips. We look forward to your contributions and questions, so you can use your Slido, as I'm sure you've been doing all the way through the conference. You type Slido into your you type EU GreenWeek into your browser, then you choose our session 12:1, and you can use that both for the questions you're giving us and also for the polls. You'll see two icons at the top, and you can use the Slido for both. Switch your mobile phones off, obviously, and feel free to Twitter the tweet #EU GreenWeek, and the session will be mainly in English, but you'll see an interpretation. If you look at the bottom of your screen on the far right, there's an icon for interpreters, so you can find the interpretation. We're going to be webcast, so your questions will also go out on the web, and you can also find the webpage in the European Committee of the Regions. So a quick glimpse at our speakers first. Manu Di Sabato from the Commission for the Environment, Climate Change and Energy at the European Committee of the Regions. Hello, Manu.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Joanna Drake, Deputy Director General at DG Environment. Hello, Joanna. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Hello.
Gilles Namur, who's Mayor of Grenoble in France. Bonjour, Gilles. Bonjour, Gilles. Vous êtes là? Can you unmute, Gilles? No problem. Okay.
Bonjour, hello everybody.
And hello to
oui, je suis
Nina.
là.
Très bien, Gilles. And hello to Nina Ratilainen, who
Can
is
you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Gilles. And Nina Ratilainen is Mayor of Turku in Finland. Hello, Nina.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, what are we all going to be hearing in this session? Well, first, a welcome speech by the European Committee of the Regions, then by the European Commission. After that, the two mayors we've just met, members of the Green City Accord, will show examples of how they're conquering challenges towards achieving zero. Again, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Now open your eyes and you will find that in your imagination, that air could have been 100% pure in the middle of a city. You could have been breathing the most wonderful air. And that, in a nutshell, is what the Green City Accord is all about. The European Commission launched the Green City Accord last October, and the aim is for cities across Europe to make huge cleanups of their cities, of their air, their water by 2030, and to achieve zero pollution by 2050, which is a key part of the European Green Deal. COVID-19 has made us even more aware of the link between a healthy ecosystem and healthy animals and humans. Instead of just taking from nature, if we want to feel good physically as well as mentally, we need to live in harmony with our environment, with nature, in a clean and healthy place. Industry, population growth, rising production and consumption have all created air pollution, which is a health risk. City mayors are leading the way in cleaning up their act. So far, 50 mayors in Europe have joined the Green City Accord, pledged to make their cities cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable by 2030. And they're working to improve air quality, water quality, and efficiency, and create more green spaces in their cities, restore biodiversity, reduce waste and noise, and achieve a circular economy. So after the welcome speeches, we'll hear examples of how 2 of the cities of Europe have been doing just that. Now to our first speaker this morning for this session on reducing pollution in our cities. It's Emmanuel de Sabato, known as Manu. He's a Walloon Member of Parliament, as well as being a Green MP for the French community in Belgium. Since 2020, he's been the 2nd Vice Chair of the Commission for Environment, Climate Change and Energy of the European Committee of the Regions. And he's also part of the work of the Core Commission for Natural Resources. Thank you for starting off this session, Manu, and we look forward to hearing from you with more detail about how the Green City Accord 2030 will lead towards zero pollution in our cities, and above all, what an important role cities and regions will play in eliminating pollution. A positive start to our session, so over to you, Manu.
Merci, mesdames et messieurs, au nom du comité.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be part of this event organized with the Eurocity and the European Commission and the European Committee of Regions. So despite the difficulties, we are able to have this virtual meeting and discuss the challenges. Last year was a very difficult year for all of us. For the local authorities and regional authorities, we had to be faced with a crisis which hit us very hard everywhere in the regions and municipalities. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, there is a new challenge to rebuild, to do it better, and to deal with the consequences of pollution and climate change. This ambition of zero pollution proposed by the European Commission comes at a right time to try to have a new green recovery and a proper transition. As representative of the Committee of Regions and of the network of cities and regions, I need to highlight the key role played by the cities in making this a reality. In Europe, 70% of the legislation is implemented by local and regional authorities. Our commitment, our efforts are indispensable if we want to have a healthy environment without toxic waste around. You know, air pollution is a real problem. And so this action plan, Cities with Zero Pollution, is really of key importance for the planet. So zero pollution is extremely important for the region and the cities for different reasons. Number one, we have a plan. The local and regional dimension is explicit in certain cases. In other cases, the action plan is based on a specific opinion of the Committee of Regions. Number two, the specific opinion of the Committee of Regions. In cooperation with the European Commission, there will be a new platform of the stakeholders, Zero Pollution, where experts and stakeholders can meet. And we can then assess the efficiency of the policies, see how this percolates to the citizens of Europe and see the reality on site. And this can help integrate zero pollution agenda at local level. And with the platform, we can contribute to best practice sharing throughout Europe. And we want to talk to local population, regional population, with the involvement of the stakeholders by implementing European policies. By 2024, the Committee of Regions will also be involved in key indicators of environmental goals for Green Regions Award, which will take place every year. other actions with the local and regional authorities, development of digital twins, which will help the cities take up the gauntlet of achieving the goal, a smart move towards zero pollution. And most of all, we want to support the Green City Accord, as the members of the Committee of Region present today is showing. So the ambition is quite high, zero pollution. And this is why we will continue to support the Green City Accord and its development. Local authorities and cities are a key element of the transition towards a greener, less polluted Europe. So, a few concrete elements from Wallonia. We are dealing with air pollution. In January 2019, the Walloon Parliament adopted a legislation on car traffic to decrease air pollution. We defined low emission areas. Namur and Eupen are piloting this project. So we're watching the emissions, and a low emission city will play a key role when there are no guidelines or standards. For black carbon, the concentration could be up to 60% by 2025. In Namur, because of the study, we already adopted some measures. We have an area where only 20 kilometers per hour are allowed. So more buses, greenwashing of the parks, planting new endemic trees. And we hope that the Walloon area and the Walloon city will be on the forefront of this green transition, also with no pollution in the waters, not just in the air. I'm sure that the Green City Accord is going to be of great help. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Aussi à vous, Manu, vous avez fait un super début, ça nous a...
Thank you very much, Manu. You've done a great deal.
And it reminds me that we are doing the same in UK, starting to have low pollution zones in London, in Birmingham, and it's growing. And also all the ideas of greening up cities, more trees and so on. We'll hear an awful lot more from the rest of our speakers, but you've given us a fantastically rousing start. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. And now next speaker is Joanna Drake, who's Deputy Director General of DG Environment at the European Commission. She's a doctor of law by training, and she wears many hats, including moving house as we speak, and future-proofing the EU's environmental policy. I shan't mention Brexit, Joanna, because you've been involved in that, but we'll keep quiet on the Brexit subject. And you're going to tell us more about the state of the environment in Europe and how the Green City Accord can improve the health of our cities. By working at a local level, huge strides are being made, as we've just heard from Manu, towards achieving a future of zero pollution across Europe. So, Joanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Irene, and thank you for that splendid introduction. First of all, I'm very delighted to be here today. GreenWeek has been rather dynamic and energetic. I have a session just after now with young people and their ideas about, how they want us to, how they want business and the future to look like. So I think we have to keep in mind that we're doing this for us, but we have even more responsibility for them. And they have to take their own responsibility as well, which they are. So let's do our bit. And I think in this spirit, I would like to say a few words about the Zero Pollution Action Plan, but I would start with the state of Europe's environment, because I think we need to take stock of where we are. Definitely, European environment has improved in recent decades, and not least because of European Union action on paper and action on the ground, and I would say mostly with the responsibility of member states' efforts. There have been important gains, in particular in terms of resource efficiency, in terms of circular economy as well. But if we look at the reports of the state of the environment from the Environmental Agency, which is located in Copenhagen, as a lot of you know, it still shows us a very worrying situation. Why? Because we tend to have downward trends in biodiversity and also nature. But we also have negative impacts because of air and noise pollution on our health, our respective health of human beings, but also on nature. Air pollution, I'm sure today most people know that it is associated with this horrific number of 400,000 premature deaths per year in the European Union only. And it's not a nice thing to be associated with. 1 in 8 premature deaths are linked to environmental pollution, of which 90% are due to non-communicable diseases, with cancer being first, with over 250,000 deaths a year, followed by heart disease, which is about 130,000 diseases a year. Regarding noise, 1 in every 5 of us lives in an area with harmful noise levels. Pollution is also one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss and also the damaged ecosystems. But also pollution comes with a price tag. And even if I mention it the last thing, I'm sure that, we cannot afford to ignore this. And it is estimated that each year air pollution in the European Union costs 5 to 10 times more than it would cost to improve air quality. So basically, if we had to channel our efforts to improve the air quality, to really notch up those efforts, it will cost us less than what it costs now actually to have pollution being caused, so the damage being caused. So what is new about this action plan that has just been adopted on the 12th of May, as it happens, so barely a month ago? And the action plan is entitled Towards Zero Pollution for Air, Water and Soil. It is a key deliverable of the Green Deal. It ties together all the relevant EU policies to tackle and prevent pollution. And what is the primary objective? Yes, we have set an objective that by 2050, pollution is reduced to levels which are no longer expected to be harmful for health and natural ecosystems, resulting ultimately to a toxic-free environment. Now, of course, you might say this is utopia. We cannot ever reach zero pollution, but we have set a target. 2050 is within reach. It's less than 30 years from now, which is nothing. And we're saying that we cannot have a level of pollution which is harmful to health and ecosystems, which is already a lot. So what are we doing about it? We have put together a chemical strategy, first of all. This was adopted already last year. And again, the action plan is very action-oriented. It's setting targets for 2030, even closer, 9 years from now, to reduce pollution at the source. So, for instance, improving air quality to reduce the number of premature deaths caused by air pollution by 55%. So we're saying we want to reduce those 400,000 horrific numbers to less by 55. Improving water quality by reducing waste, plastic litter at sea, 50%. Microplastics released in the environment, reducing by 30%. Improving soil quality by reducing nutrient losses and chemical pesticides used by 50%. Reducing air pollution impacts on biodiversity by 25%. Reducing the share of people chronically disturbed by transport noise by 30%, and significantly reducing waste generation and residual municipal waste by 50%. So the plan of zero pollution outlines a number of other flagship initiatives and actions, some of which are, for example, the alignment, and this is quite big, of the EU air quality standards more closely to the recommendations of WHO, of the World Health Organization, because these are known to be of a higher commitment, higher quality than the ones that we are bound with at the moment. Another flagship in the Zero Pollution Action Plan is that of reviewing the standards for the quality of water, including rivers and seas, reducing soil pollution and enhancing restoration, reviewing waste laws in the EU to adapt them to the clean and circular economy principles. And I should mention here that most of the measures on soil pollution will be covered by the soil strategy, will be put together later this year. And the priority here is to identify and remediate, yes, it is an English word, contaminated sites. I actually had to look that up, by the way, it's a scientific word. So the Zero Pollution Action Plan is only the beginning of a long journey. It will take time, but fired up with determination, with commitment and cooperation, we think we will get there together. We look forward to continued good collaboration with the Committee of the Regions. We are particularly grateful for the committee's support with the launch of the new Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform. But what is the role of cities and regions? They have a pivotal role. Local governments are essential partners in achieving sustainable urban development and key players in delivering the European Green Deal ambition and in implementing pollution-relevant laws and policies. Some cities and regions are taking it very seriously, and they are already engaged in increased actions. And here I will mention Bolzano, Grenoble, and Turku. We'll be hearing from Grenoble and Turku today. Unfortunately, a lot of cities still struggle to address pollution satisfactorily. For instance, EU air quality standards are still breached in more than 100 cities in the European Union. And our goal is not to go after them with the stick, but to give them enough carrot and for themselves to understand that they do have carrot there, which is called public awareness, which is called health, which is called future generations, for them to actually engage into more action. Most Europeans share a greener vision for the future and recognize that the quality of the environment has an impact on them. In a recent Eurobarometer survey of 2019, 78% of respondents cited that environmental issues have a direct effect on their daily life and health, while 83% believe that European legislation is necessary to protect the environment. So we've heard a lot already about the Accord from Manu, and I'm really happy that he recognizes the importance of it. But it is an initiative to keep up the engagement, to support cities, to take further action to improve the further environment. The Green City Accord has a twin objective. First of all, to encourage city authorities across the Union to take further action to make their cities cleaner, greener and healthier, places to live by 2030. So there is quite a very close enough goal in time, to support efforts to speed up implementation of the relevant EU laws on air, water, waste, etc. But it is a partnership with cities. And by signing the Accord, it's a political declaration, but it's also agreeing to the commitment texts on air, on water, on nature, biodiversity, on circular economy, on waste, and on noise. And cities agree to the ambition to achieve the following 5 goals by 2030. Improvement in air quality, important progress in water quality and efficiency, considerable progress in conserving and enhancing urban biodiversity, including through an increase in extent and quality of green areas in the cities, greater progress in advancing towards circular economy by securing a significant improvement in the management of waste, a significant reduction in noise pollution. And they will be, of course, required to implement these policies and programs in an integrated manner as possible and report regularly every 3 years on their implementation. So it's not just a political declaration that gathers dust, the moment it's signed. You have to report back. So you need to be doing in the meantime. So, of course, each city needs to select actions depending on their individual situation and their needs and priorities. So, for instance, on air quality, signatory cities would focus on these local sources of pollution. They have the largest impact on local air pollutant concentrations. And to exploit synergies, city authorities would mainstream air quality into, for instance, energy and climate action, transport planning, spatial planning. I would like to emphasize here that the Green City Accord will support the implementation of the Zero Pollution Action Plan. It will complement the Covenant of Mayors Climate and Energy initiative by addressing areas not covered by the Covenant. Of course, taking on board measures could be costly for cities. Let's mention the elephant in the room. And I would like to reassure you of the Commission's commitment to supporting cities in their efforts to become greener and cleaner. The EU provides support through the structural funds, through Horizon programme and also LIFE. Urban development is also central to the so-called regional policy, and indeed a significant share, which is 16.9 billion euros, is implemented locally through more than 900 integrated and sustainable urban development strategies managed directly by urban and local authorities. And therefore, this new European urban initiative will further strengthen integrated and participatory approaches and facilitate cooperation and capacity building, knowledge, policy development and communication in the area of sustainable urban development. Of course, we shouldn't forget Horizon 2020, with more than 630 million euros invested in urban-related research and innovation, mobilizing more than 240 cities to implement over 100 projects. Support is also available for cities interested in becoming more circular. The Circular Cities Initiative will advance the circular economy at the city level, including by piloting and demonstrating innovative circular solutions. We've got LIFE, and LIFE is the funding instrument for environment and climate. This has been particularly successful in providing support. And since its inception, LIFE has helped to green some 300 cities already. We have also, in addition, several dialogues, platforms, review mechanisms, and green awards, which has already been mentioned today also by Manu, the Green Capital, Green Leaf Awards, the Environmental Implementation Review, Clean Air Dialogues, etc. To conclude, I think COVID has taught us a number of things, and one of the lessons that we surely have learned, all of us, is how to revalue our human health, and how human health is connected to the environment and in turn to the health of our own planet. So reducing environmental pollution and creating healthier environments will yield significant benefits for the health of European citizens. And therefore I encourage regions and cities across Europe to join us on this journey to combat pollution and to deliver a toxic-free environment by 2050. We owe at least this to future generations, to ourselves, but we want to at least leave this world in the knowledge that we have left it as a cleaner and healthier place than when we joined it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. That was a wonderfully rousing speech, which is really making all of us galvanized into wanting to rush out and do a few things in our cities pretty quickly. I'm very encouraged that you're talking about children, because that is really the future, and that's why we're doing it, for the future as well as now. And also hearing your figures was very good. It's the first time I've heard proper targets on all these different ideas, which I think is terribly practical. And I'm really impressed and pleased that someone like you is at the helm of this, and I feel that it's really going forward. So thank you for starting it off so well. And you and Manu have both given us really an introduction into what the Green City Accord is all about. Each city in the Accord will be striving to improve and go in the direction that you've just talked about, Joanna. So in the next part of our session, we'll be hearing from our panel of mayors from 2 of the European cities who are putting into action some of what Joanna and Manu have just been talking about. We'll hear from Grenoble in France and from Turku in Finland. But just because Joanna has inspired us, I'd like a very quick second exercise. And that is for everybody who's watching to now stop for just a few seconds and listen to sounds, just listen. Now, in the future, hopefully, Joanna, we won't hear cars, we won't hear noise, we won't hear motorbikes, we won't hear road drills. We will, in fact, hear the lovely sounds of nature, which we heard during COVID. We heard more birds, more insects, we heard the trees breezing and so on. And that is what we're looking forward to as a permanent solution, Joanna, and you've set us on your way beautifully. Thank you. So now to our city mayors. First, let's go to France, La Belle France, to hear from Gilles Namur. Gilles is Deputy Mayor of Grenoble for the Humanists and Ecologists. Gilles is a trained engineer with priorities protecting biodiversity, public spaces and mobility. Grenoble has in fact got a lot to celebrate. It's the winner of the EU Green Capital Award for 2022. And here too, the aim is to work towards lowering air pollution by developing green spaces and nature in the city. It's already a beautiful city, Grenoble, actually, and by ensuring a circular economy and a pure water supply. Just recently, Grenoble signed up to the Green City Accord on the 17th of May. So this session is a perfect time to celebrate this news. Gilles will outline the work he and his team are doing in Grenoble. I'm looking forward to hear. À vous, Monsieur Gilles Namur.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Irene, and hello, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here with you. Unfortunately, I have some connectivity issues. I hope you'll be able to hear me. I have quite a lot to share with you. You know that Grenoble is surrounded by mountains, which means that it is not always easy to communicate by Wi-Fi. So we know that the climate is changing, and Grenoble is directly impacted by whatever happens in the mountains, in the Alps. We've noticed that most of our glaciers have lost some of their surfaces, and those that were 3,500 meters high might disappear. In our city, the schools and the children are particularly exposed to air pollution. Amongst the pollutant, we have nitrogen dioxide, which is generated by traffic on the motorways. So here, this is the status of the air quality. We've seen that there has been a decrease by 23% of green gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. So there is 25% of PM10 and even smaller particles of PM2.5. And so for the urban areas, this is due to industrial activities, it's due to heating by wood, and it's also due to motorways. Our activities are across the board. First of all, we targeted transport, and we looked at public service and promoted cycling. Thanks to this, we've seen that many inhabitants of the city of Grenoble are now using their bicycle. So close to 98%, close to 18% of the people are now moving around with their bicycle. And we have 320 kilometers of cycle tracks, including 44 kilometers of express cycleways. So this means that children can go from home to school by cycle. And we want to triple the cycle tracks. We also want to increase the place of public transport. And so people should be able to leave their car at homes and should be able to take public means of transport, buses, trams and trains. Our goal is to replace motor cars to avoid fossil fuel by 2030. Okay, so we've also defined a low emission zone. This is something we did back in 2017, and we have 2 urban freight centers. We started with the cars and the lorries, and so we have, for this purpose, created urban freight centers around the city. And we also want to reduce the speed of cars to make the traffic more fluid, but also to decrease the emission. Pedestrian citizens will be able to move around more freely, more carefree, so to speak. And so 30 kilometers per hour is the speed limit almost everywhere in the city of Grenoble. Next slide. We see here that we're talking about nature, the benefit of the green areas does not need to be advertised. We know that this is particularly important to capture CO2 emissions and prevent the heating of the planet. And so it is important to also promote biodiversity. This is important. If it is good for the animals, it's also good for humans. So we wanted to protect certain areas, agricultural areas, by banning any construction activity. We also wanted to have some increased variety of planted tree species and greenland plants. We want to reduce pesticides. We started back in 2008. So we're letting nature take over and be what it is supposed to be. So we're not cutting trees all the time. 82% of the population lives near parks and green areas. It was not easy. We also created community gardens. In terms of food, we have promoted organic food, and we hope to achieve 100% organic food in Grenoble. The next slide. We're concentrating also on water. We're very lucky in Grenoble because 95% of the inhabitants drink water from the tap, against 18% of the rest of the French population. Our drinking water is excellent. There is no treatment. It's 100% pure and natural. So it's an ideal solution, an ideal situation in Grenoble. But this is the result of political willingness. It is a public service that manages water. It has been in existence since 1878. This metropolitan authority is dealing with the drinking water, but also used water. And so it is one of the largest protection zones of more than 2,300 hectares, one of the largest protection zones. So watering green areas is also controlled because we want to reduce consumption. There is a tough regulation about how we water our gardens with groundwater. And we're also trying to select heat-resistant plants which require less water. And then my last slide on energy. We want by 2022, 100% of the household electricity needs will be covered by green electricity. So no nuclear energy. So 100% of the heating will be created with green electricity and with recovered energies. So some of the waste is converted into heat. And this is an idea that was submitted by the local authorities. We also have a biomass unit and Aquapol, which is a wastewater treatment plant, which produces also biomethane. And we have an important investment program for windmills, for green energy, to really fight against overconsumption and waste of energy. So we've invested quite a lot through a number of programs everywhere around the city, in individual homes, in the public buildings, and also in other type of construct. Thank you.
Comprehensive look at your town of Grenoble, and I must say, well, most of us feel like rushing straight off to visit Grenoble, because the idea of only driving 30 miles an hour throughout the town is a dream, and the fact that you've got more and more green spaces, you're not putting pesticides on your plants, and the whole thing is for cyclists, for walkers. You're really thinking ahead. Your energy policy, your mobility policy, your local transport, admirable. And I hope that you give that example to many, many cities in France. Before I ask you a direct question, it's time for our Slido poll. So everybody, we've got some nice questions coming in too. So if you look at your Slido poll, I would like you to choose the 3 priorities out of the 5 that you think are the most important for our future cities. Quite difficult, but here we go. Cleaner air, cleaner water, good waste management and a transition towards the circular economy, noise control, nature and biodiversity protection. I would like all of those, but you choose your 3 priorities. While you're choosing your options, I have a question for you, Gilles. I'll do it in English, je peux le faire en français aussi. In our French towns that I have seen, there is more and more construction. You mentioned construction. And when they are building, they are tearing down trees, they are tearing down green spaces, taking up more land and not really putting enough trees back in again. How can you fight this madness of construction?
Well, there are different ways to go about it, more or less complex. Well, first of all, there is the urban plans that can be defined, and another rule is zero artificial ground, which means that we need to keep some areas for agricultural purposes, for green areas, for parks, or to compensate. There is also something new to work around the trees, to give trees a status. They need to be protected like animals, like fauna. So we're going to build around the tree instead of felling trees. Those trees are so important to accompany climate change. So those are urban rules, but it's also a political will to give nature, animals and flowers a status. Also, there is the willingness not to live too far away from the city, because that means that they need to take their car to get back to work in the city. So stay in the city, have green spaces, because it can make you feel cooler when it's very hot.
Thank you very much for your answer, Gilles. And the Slido results have been coming in as we speak. The order, everybody has voted for clean air as the first priority. That's good to see. The second priority seems to be for nature and biodiversity, which was at the bottom of my list, which is interesting. And the third priority is waste management. So it's very interesting to see what people's priorities are. Of course, we want all the priorities. Well, thanks very much, audience, for your contribution. Keep your questions coming in. We've got quite a few, which is very cheering. And now we head to Finland and to Nina Rattalainen, who is City Councillor for the Green Party in Turku on the shores of the Baltic. Turku was one of the first places to sign up for the Green City Accord. Nina is a member of the European Committee of the Regions and she studied sustainable development. Today she'll focus on the city's waste management, which we just talked about, including the new textile refinement plant and how to reduce our carbon footprint. The circular economy is your aim, so the floor is yours, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you, Gilles, for your interesting and intriguing speech. And dear participants of the fourth day of the Green Week, I'm really proud to give you a short overview of circular economy objectives under the EU Green City Accord in my city, as well as share with you some of our key policies that have and will be impactful in turning our city more sustainable. But first, a few words about my background. For 9 years, I have worked as a city councillor now in the city of Turku, in the southwest Finland by the shores of the Baltic Sea, as said. And besides city council, I chair the Regional Waste Management Committee and participate in the Commission for the Environment, Climate Change and Energy in the European Committee of the Regions. So our topic today, therefore, is very close to my political heart. And next slide, please. When it comes to our city, I think that we are known for our ambitious targets and so far efficient work also in reaching them. The city of Turku is committed to a resource-wise future, which for us means zero waste, sustainable use of natural resources and climate policies. We strive for carbon neutrality by 2029, when the city celebrates its 800th birthday, and climate positive soon after that. We were among the first cities to join the EU Green City Accord, and since then we have renewed and implemented a progressive forest strategy and further worked to conserve the Baltic Sea, and also started to draw our very first biodiversity plan. I especially welcome growing interest in preserving urban biodiversity and understanding the biodiversity loss better. Our city covers less than 0.1% of the entire area of Finland. However, around 12% of Finland's endangered species can be encountered within our area. So cities like ours have a significant role in preserving valuable biodiversity. One thing we need to work especially hard still for is the conservation of the Baltic Sea. And in this thematic area, all cities in the catchment basin of the Baltic Sea are in crucial role. In the future, we want to find solutions in preventing eutrophication, reducing pollution, and also protecting the biodiversity of sea areas. The next slide, please. In our view, circular climate policy needs to address the indirect emissions embedded in products and materials along their entire life cycle. We are currently in a phase of finalizing our circular economy roadmap, and a recent study by Finland Futures Research Centre recognized that just in our region there are 700 circular economy operators, 270 of them being businesses visibly engaged in the circular economy. Now, in our scale and in our scope, that is a significant amount of actors creating new solutions in circularity every day. Next slide, please. As one concrete example, I wish to showcase something that is a fresh initiative for us. The first large-scale end-of-life textile refinement plant in Nordic countries, which I think is a huge leap towards more sustainable textile circulation. The pilot textile processing plant will start operating this summer, and soon it will be using the textile waste of both companies and households. And as the final product, the plant provides recycled fiber for the construction and marine industry, acoustic panels, composites, non-woven and filter materials, and other technical textiles. The future plant will be able to process 12,000 tons of end-of-life textiles annually, which is about 10% of Finland's textile waste volume altogether. Considering the amount of textile waste in general, I think that the transition of the textile industry from a linear model to a circular economy is absolutely essential. The processing plant, we believe, is actually piloting a new era of the circular economy. Next slide, please. Then to sum up, our goals are quite ambitious, but I think that when we look at the scale and complexity of the ecological crisis, no city can strive for less ambition. And while we execute our plans and roadmaps, we may ensure that sustainable future for our citizens, as well as innovations and vitality for our businesses. And most importantly, I think the more sustainable and circular our cities become in Europe, the more sustainable and circular our world can be, and we can advance human rights on global level. In the end, that is in the core of the European values. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. And indeed, it's good to see how the circular economy in practice really can work. We've been talking airy-fairily about it, but to see that in practice in the textile industry, which is quite important to Finland, but it's been seriously considered, that is really heartwarming. We've got questions coming in. Please continue putting your questions on Slido. And Nina, I will give this one to you. That from Anonymous, it says, how do we accelerate the decision-making of the cities and regions and take into account the point of view of citizens? So how do you get your citizens in Turku actively interested?
This is a very good question and actual question and a topic we need to consider when we are implementing our policies and targets. And I really think it's essential to invite our citizens to do these policies and plan and suggest new initiatives with us. We have been engaging our citizens in different workshops, and we are inviting our citizens to climate workshops because we have recognized that climate policy issues are particular issues that our citizens are interested of. And I also want to mention young people. It is, I think, very, very important that we as cities recognize the needs of young people and their perspectives on the future, because our cities need to be good places for our youth as well.
That's very good to hear you say that, just like Joanna did. Very important aspect indeed. And Gilles, there a question, I think, more in your line from Markaya Henderson coming in, who says, for endemic planting efforts, is there any consideration given to pollen as a natural pollutant affecting the health of those with respiratory diseases? That's a complex question.
So I don't know whether there is any emblematic plant. What we're trying to do is to have a variety of plants. We're trying to avoid having lines of the same trees, because if one tree gets sick, then the risk is that the whole line of trees will be sick. So we are focusing on variety. Also Mediterranean plants which are best suited to resist warm temperatures. But the answer is diversification, and biodiversity is based on diversity. So this is true for all ecosystems. They need to work together. So we need to adapt and concentrate on water which are not too thirsty, in water that are not focusing on beauty, but they need also to be useful for animals, for insects, for birds and bees and so on. So those are the things that we're focusing on. Thank you.
Question here, I think, probably aimed at you, Nina, because it was about young people, which you just spoke about. It says, in addition to citizens and young people that Nina mentioned, are there other actors to cooperate as part of the Green City Accord? So who else would you like as to influence?
Everyone, of course. I think we need everyone on board because environmental degradation and pollution knows no administrative limits. So I think that businesses are one very key actor in helping us to become more sustainable. And this is something that the cities can't just do that by themselves. And also we need all our cities and all our regions to work with us in the Green City Accord because also our citizens move and commute and live in different areas, not just within our city borders. So we need to respect the nature, not just the administrative borders.
Thank you. And Gilles, you were nodding there. Do you want a quick answer?
Oui, complètement. La
Yes. Participation of companies, of citizens, of local authorities is very important. And that's why with the green capitals of Europe, we're going to try to have as many people on board as possible to have a win-win situation. So from a media point of view, it's interesting for the city, for the companies, and we want to go a step further in the transition and set challenges, you know, for the companies, for the citizens. This is what we've been doing for the last 6 years with the citizens. We're trying to green streets or areas and have this approach.
For a quick last question, so a quick answer, it's from Kalle Parvalainen. And it says, continuing from the poll, what are some of the most important actions or policies cities or areas should introduce as soon as possible to tackle climate change? So just a quick answer from each of you. Nina.
Well, I think it's about mobility. I think that the thing that we most struggle with is to become more sustainable when it comes to transportation, and just build new bike lines and launch initiatives regarding mobility as a service. So traffic and transportation is something we really need to introduce more policies very quickly.
Gilles, rapidement.
Yes, transport, of course. This is of paramount importance. We need to have a real political will. We need to invest massively to change habits and offer alternative solutions. And then another thing, heating, wood. Heating generates a lot of particles. This is something that we are quite familiar with in Grenoble. We need to have more suited devices for that.
And to everybody, especially you, the audience, you've been a great audience for joining in Slido and for your good questions. Well, big oaks from little acorns grow. Grenoble and Turku are setting a very fine example indeed. I can't help thinking that the best way of making sure we live more sustainably and achieve zero pollution is by supporting these kind of strong city initiatives in the Green City Accord and, of course, spreading them from city to city. There are many positives if only all the cities thought like both of you and got rid of pollution's biggest killers, cancer, lung disease, and heart problems. Cleaner air and water will free up our hospitals from environmentally related diseases, and this in turn will help the economy. And in the long run, it'll be win-win for everyone. So you're making a really positive start. Thank you very much for such an uplifting session, very positive indeed. I feel really inspired. And thanks not only to the audience, but to our four speakers, two of whom have had to go very busy, Manu and Joanna, and also to Gilles and Nina, our mayors from Turku and Grenoble. And a big thanks to those you can't see, but who've been working incredibly hard behind the scenes, the interpreters, the technicians, the backstage moderators, Azura and Teamworks, and especially to our session organizers, Natalia and Roberto. There's now a 15-minute break, but to come back at 11:15 for the results of our hackathon, some innovative solutions to preventing pollution. And then we'll see you for the final closing session, which I hope will be even more uplifting than our session, at 12 o'clock. So on behalf of the Directorate General for the Environment of the European Commission, thanks for spending time with us. From us all, goodbye.